Since 1986, we have experienced the blessings of God in a very wonderful way. We have seen the truth of Romans 1:17 become a reality in our ministry. For therein is the righteousness of God revealed from faith to faith, as written, the just shall live by faith. As we launch out into this giant step of faith in this building program, let us not forget what God has accomplished through His people by faith. Some of our people, by word of testimony, are going to remind us and help us in the area of trusting God by faith, what God has done already and what we believe that God will continue to do. Remember that the Christian life begins with faith, and the Christian life is continued by faith. By the grace of God, may we experience the blessing of God because His people believe by faith in what God can do.
My name is Noel Hensley. I'm the chairman of the Deacons of South Haven Baptist Church, and this is my wife, Jean.
We were here when the 156 charter members signed on the list, and we were here for a few months after that.
I'm Frankie Gagliano, and I have been here at South Haven since I was 7 years old.
My name is Gary Hamilton. I've been here since the early days, charter member.
My name is Kirk Johnson, one of the deacons here at South Haven and also on the building committee.
South Haven Baptist Church began in 1986 with the calling of Pastor Frank Gagliano by 156 charter members who had helped to maintain the heritage of New Testament Christianity on this campus.
We had a stack of resumes. They weren't hard to get resumes for pastoral needs. And I remember looking, I just left them. I didn't even read them. Seemed like it was better. The Lord led more in a way of somebody being recommended, and that's how we got pastor. Very busy, because you had to change seating and things constantly to have that. Of course, it got crowded, which is wonderful.
The church in the little gym was very tight, which is kind of like what it is now. But we didn't have to jet chairs up like we did down there. In the little gym, didn't have a mobile baptistry so that it could overflow or not be warm. The classrooms were right there next to the auditorium also, so it was quite loud at times.
The building was getting kind of old by the time we moved into it for church. It was nothing, I don't think it was a bad experience, but we had a lot of problems with echo and with the insulation falling from the ceiling. I know Brother Frank, it used to really embarrass him. We just wipe it off our Bible and keep on, you know, for the service.
Especially remember the insulation on the ceiling. And one of the things that was fun to do was to take your pencils, if they're sharpened well enough, you could take your pencils and throw them up and stick them into the ceiling, and until they told us not to do that anymore.
Oh, we were such limited space back in those days. There were so many things that we had to do, and we'd try different things. I remember the baptismal we had at the time was just a little bitty fiberglass baptism that was about that wide, and the person would sit down in it, and the way I remember it was so narrow that if somebody was too big, you couldn't hardly get him into it, and the pastor would stand on the outside and would have trouble sometimes kind of dunking them, because all we had was, I don't remember exactly, 4 or 5 classrooms down each side, and that's all the room we had. And so we came up with the idea that we were going to build all these dividers in this gym. And for those that remember that gym, that was the loudest place. It echoed constantly, and you would say one word and it would just bounce back and forth, bounce back and forth. And so we built these dividers, and some of them we put on wheels, and some we put on these little platforms. We built them out of 2x2 frames and covered them with plywood, and we would stack them up, and then that only lasted a couple of Sundays. It just did not work. I think that was one of the biggest failures we ever had.
When they're having children's church and trying to have Sunday school and everything too, sometimes it kind of overlapped a little bit.
Sheila and I had just started working with the junior church, and we'd have 80, 85 kids in this one room. And of course, church services were out in the auditorium at the time. And every time we would try to sing a song or anybody would make any noise, Miss Jean would come running in and would scold us for making too much noise. We might interfere with pastor.
And the need for a building at that time was real. It wasn't just wanting to build a building. We really needed another one.
Well, I can remember on a number of occasions talking about, and I think the whole congregation at that time, we had the land here, and this was just a big bare hill up here on where the church auditorium sits now. And we used to think about how great it would be to be able to get out of that gymatorium, if you want to call it that, and build a new facility up here. And we made numerous walks and trips up here as individuals and as groups and as a church congregation up here to pray on this hill to build this facility here.
The humble but blessed beginnings of the church has left a legacy of sacrifice and faithfulness. As growth took place, the young South Haven Baptist Church began to look up the hill for a place to expand.